And just also thank you guys so much for doing this so quickly. But I think what you managed to pull off yesterday is pretty cool and pretty important, not just for Chattanooga, but for the industry. And that's why Russ and I both wanted to kind of scramble like you guys did yesterday and make this happen. I think what you did is pretty incredible, and that's what I want to talk about. So, if you're both ready or all three ready, we'll go ahead and get started.
Yeah, I'd just like to start because I just think Drew deserves so much of the credit here for coming up with the idea to have an amazing show at Memorial. Um, just it took what was a really tough day and turned it into something that for sure is a Moon River highlight for the rest of my life. And it just reminds me of one of the artists that Drew and I share a passion for is Tom Petty, and I just kept thinking about his song, underappreciated song last night called "Walls," and the lyric is, "Some days are diamonds, some days are rocks," and the day started out with diamonds, moved into a portion of rocks, and because of Drew's passion and work ethic and ingenuity, he turned it into diamonds again, and I just am really appreciative of that.
Well, let me go ahead and set things up, if I can. First of all, thank you both for joining us. And Taco and I were there Saturday. We got to interview Wild Rivers and Matt Carney.
Matt Carney, and then I was there Sunday until I had to evacuate. But
Yeah.
I saw Maggie Rose and then some of Sammy Ray. So
yeah, and
then,
I wanted to I got to hug and howdy with Ted. Drew, we never got to actually speak, but I did want to commend you on your three-legged race skills.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that my son's backstage birthday party was right in the middle of your Wild Rivers
No,
interview.
it's awesome, man. I listened
It
to
was
it
great.
today. It makes it's perfect. It's so great. And I had forgotten that your son was born 4 years ago this weekend. So I mean that makes it even better. But so for people listening, and I don't know how this show is going to work out, because like what you guys did during Moon River, we're sort of adapting. I just think what you guys did was so amazing that we wanted to talk about it. So I reached out to people and they made it happen very, very quickly. So that's why we're talking. So we'll jump in. But for those who weren't there, Moon River is a 2-day festival in Chattanooga. It was Saturday and Sunday. And Sunday, man, we all thought it was going to rain. And then Sunday morning, we thought, this is great. There's blue sky and it was going to be terrific. And then about what, 2:15, here came lightning and all of that. And I literally, Taco was already there. I just had pulled up. My ride was dropping me off, literally just pulled up in front of the main gate and didn't get out, or I would have been stuck in all of that. I was there, Ted, at Bonnaroo when they emptied the site, what, 4 or 5 years ago. That's a unique situation where you can have 80,000 people literally go back to their cars and their tents, kind of hunker down, and then clear everything and then bring them all back. I was there at Forecastle in, I think, 18 or 19 with Sam Smith when he was on stage, and the Gustnado came up. I've never seen a storm like that. Had to clear the site, and you guys had to adapt and get everything ready for Sunday, which you did. But this weekend on Sunday, you had to clear the site. Looked like everything was maybe going to get going back around 6. Then 6:15, 6:30, we get the notice that everything is canceled for the night. Hour later, I get a phone call from Nick Wilkinson over at the Tivoli Foundation, said, "Hey, I think we're going to put this concert on at Memorial Auditorium. I'll know more in about 5 minutes. Well, you know, I'm at home on my couch, like everybody else, jumped up, started making phone calls. Um, and then before I know it, I'm getting social media comments that it's happening. Um, so does that set the stage? Am I missing? I mean, that's kind of the very, very basics. Now, what we want to do is how did that happen? Because it doesn't just happen. Uh, you know, it's not like the old cartoons or whatever where somebody says, "Hey, I've got a barn. Let's go throw a show." Stuff has to move. Stuff has to happen. So, if you guys don't mind, take us through how that happened yesterday.
Ted, you want me to roll first?
Yeah, why don't you take it? You take the fun stuff, Drew, and then I'll handle the unfun stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, Ted could go into sort of the bigger decisions about what happened with the festival. But around 5 o'clock, that cell was on top of the festival, or leaving the first cell, second cell. I can't remember which one it was. There's a couple of them, but we were getting rained on really hard, and then it stopped, and there was obviously a lot of conversation happening about what that storm had done to the site. And so there was some chatter about whether or not we would be able to go on. And in the meantime, Ellie and I ran out. There were tons of people out sort of by the gate. And so Ellie and I went out there with just a guitar, played for about an hour just for all the people who were standing there waiting to get information. I literally, while playing, I had no idea what was going to sort of transpire. So as soon as I got off, as soon as I went back inside the green room area, artist area, I got word that we were canceling. And previous to going out there and doing that, I had sort of floated an idea to my manager, Paul, and to Brian Benson, another one of our partners, one of Ted's folks. Hey, worst case here is the Memorial Auditorium open? Can we just throw an acoustic show if worst case happens here? And it was kind of said honestly a little bit in jest. Not, I mean, because I just at that point was pretty confident we were going to be able to restart. So I get off. Fast forward an hour and 20 minutes later, I get off. I get word that we're going to have to cancel, and Brian comes into my dressing room. He's like, "Were you serious about helping put this thing together?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I want to try to do something. There's a lot of frustrated people. It's you can't control the weather, obviously, but also there's all these the memorial doesn't hold as many people are at the festival. We are getting word that a lot of people had left for the day just because of the forecast, and so we just thought, man, we can try to throw something together here. We sent immediate word out to all the managers of the artists who were on site for the day and sort of got a head count. And the first head count we got was local natives were immediately in. Sammy Ray said she would like to do it. JP said yes, and as a matter of fact, he had already gone out to play as well out in the parking lot for people. And
I'm glad you mentioned that because I saw that too. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was really sweet. And then we were still waiting from other acts. And there's obviously when you're putting on a festival, like bands and stuff, it's really complicated because people have a show, and there's a reason why production and changeover takes long because it takes a long time to sound check. And so I just want to throw a huge shout out to the artists who are willing to do this because they knew they were walking into a dumpster fire of a last minute throw and go, not the way you want to sound, not the way you want to look, not the scenario that's a dream, but also also taking advantage of the fact that, hey, these people love this music and a lot of them traveled here to play. And local natives especially, they were so great because this was going to be their last show of the year. Mm. And so all of a sudden that gets taken out from underneath them because of the weather stuff. And so we all of a sudden it's sort of an all hands on deck. We're getting everybody over, getting security moved over and taking over the details of sort of the logistics of how it pulled off. But as we're setting up, so Ellie and I make our way. I pull up at 7:15 to Memorial, and the staff there is working like crazy to try to set up some monitors and mics, and we're getting as many lines run as we can. And I'm trying to help. Okay, this is the lighting situation. Here's how the show's going to go. Ellie and I are going to kick it off. We're going to do a few songs, and then we'll bring up each artist individually. So then Abraham Alexander reaches out to me on Instagram, who his set did get to happen early in the day, right before the chaos began. And he said,
Yeah,
"Hey
I saw
man,
a
what?"
little bit of his set.
Yeah, he was incredible.
It
And
was.
so he basically said, we had not heard back from Charlie Crockett or Leon's people yet, and had gotten sort of the impression that they were not going to be able to make it work for them. And cheers to Abraham, because he reached out to me on Instagram and said, "Hey, I'm coming. I'd love to play a couple songs and help out. And also, I'm trying really hard to get Charlie and Leon to come because they're all three friends." And so we got word about halfway through the show that Charlie was. We got word at the beginning of the show that Charlie was coming, and then we got word about halfway through the show that Leon was on his way. And it was just an absolutely magical night, and the artists were so gracious to do that, and the fans came in. I mean, they were lined up outside the building by the thousands. I don't know how many people it holds in there, but there had to have been 3,000 people in the room.
Yeah,
Maybe
that
2,500. I don't know, but it was definitely like it was incredibly emotional. It was difficult. It was this weird mixture of disappointment from the day, but also this unique thing got to happen that was literally once in a lifetime for everybody in the room.
the Nick Wilkinson, who, by the way, I should have said in the intro, I'm going to talk to Nick and Sam and Courtney Keene over at
Yeah,
the Tivoli Foundation tomorrow, because what they did, what you guys did, what everybody did, let's put it that way. But Sam and Courtney are like I've said, they're the ones with the keys. If they're not there, it doesn't happen. They know where the lights are and the switches and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to talk to them too tomorrow.
Can't wait to hear what that day was like for them. I mean, they went from just a dead house to this crazy event.
I'll put it this way: on Saturday, Sam was in, I think, Montana. He was on vacation.
He was actually in Colorado and drove back.
Yeah.
Had 2 hours of sleep. Yeah, 2 hours of sleep, and then he did it. And for perspective, in today's world, if you're booking shows, and let's say Drew and I are going to do a show at the Tivoli here in town, we're booking that thing 4 months out, 5 months out. There's a lot of preparation that goes into it. And from the time that Drew and I and Brian Benson and Paul Steele we're doing this, can you get the venue? I called Nick Wilkinson at 6:03 p.m. Last night. And I said to Nick, hey, we want to, Drew wants to do a Drew Holcomb and Friends special show at the Memorial. Can we make this happen? I might have said, please, you've got to make this happen. And all Nick said to me was, you got it. I think he might have said, buddy, you got it. He says buddy a lot. He's just like, you got it. And then he's like, I got to go. And he hung up on me.
Yeah.
And that was it. That was it. I was like, Nick, and then I texted him like, we got to do doors at 8:30. And I mean, what an amazing team that they, in 2 hours and 27 minutes, were able to assemble a staff, have concessions to sell to people, get their ushers in place. Like, it was a whole different team of people that Memorial uses than Moon River. And they got their team together and executed the night. And I thought they were just superstars.
Yeah, and that's why you and I we're all talking right now. And Russ, I don't know how you're going to edit this together, but it's going to be your problem, not mine, because we're going to talk to them tomorrow. But Nick called me about 7:15 Sunday night and said, "Hey, just a heads up, I think there's going to be a show." And I said, "Wristbands?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, "What about the people who've already gone home and cut theirs off?" He said, "No idea. Haven't given that a second thought, but now I need to, So it was that kind of level of detail. But we're going to talk.
I was literally on Instagram. I was on Instagram responding to people with those questions. They're like, "Hey, Drew, I cut mine off. Can I come?" And I just said, "Bring it." And then people said, "What about my kids who don't have wristbands?" I said, "Bring them.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out. Just show up."
Yeah. And to your point, Ted, about the crowd, when he went, again, we'll get into it, but he said, I expected 100 people. And we turned the corner when he came walking up 7th Street, and he said it was lined up like it was a widespread panic show. So, and that's why I wanted to have this conversation, because on our show, on our podcast, and Russ can for you don't know, Drew, his name is Russ, but we call him Lord Taco. So if I go back and forth, that's who I'm talking to. Sorry. But the last 2 or 3 years have been so crazy, and Bonnaroo obviously was canceled because of the rain. Similar. There were questions, communication, all these types of things. And so yesterday you guys just crushed it. When we got the text that, it was canceled and refunds would be given for the people who bought Sunday and 50%. I mean, I was like, man, y'all didn't have to do that. That's amazing. And then 45 minutes later, there's a whole new concert. So I just think, and I wanted to give you guys props and kudos for adapting and being able to do that, and obviously for Nick and his team. And like I said, we'll get into that, but I just think the love that you guys earned, the way you handled a tough situation yesterday, pretty amazing.
Thanks, Barry.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. You want to speak to that, Drew? Or you want me to?
You can take a stab at it. And then
Yeah, I'll start. I just where am I going to start with this? I think the number one goal for Moon River in the partnership that I have with Drew and Paul and Brian Benson, like the people who have been in this for a long time, the number one goal is bringing people together in community, having a shared experience of music that they love. And it's really important work for all of us. And it's about, really helping Drew get his music out. And then, Drew being a curator for the different types of music that's going to be on his festival. And we do it together. And it's just really important. And since 2019, in the city of Chattanooga really embracing Moon River, I just think there's so much that goes into it, and it's just such important work to all of us. But all of it is made possible by these incredibly loyal Drew Holcomb Moon River fans that have been with us since 2018 in Chattanooga, and have been with Drew for his career. And when Drew and Paul were doing Moon River on their own in Memphis, they've been there. And the goal is that we're a family, and the decisions that we're making are all about treating the family the best way we possibly can. And the family isn't just the people on the working side of it. The family includes the fans. And when we're making all of our decisions, those fans and how they've treated Drew and how they've treated the festival are foremost in our thoughts. We're trying to do the right thing. I think that's the best way to say it. And then to speak to Chattanooga, one of the amazing things is just when you're in a community that really wants you, this whole community has embraced this festival. And I feel, and the staff feels very, very wanted here. And the attitude in Chattanooga is, whatever you need, we want to do it for you. And I think it starts with having a great mayor like Tim Kelly, who's calling me just to ask me what I need in the middle of everything on Sunday, asking what he can do to help with moving the show to Memorial. Anything I need is what he told me. Same with Nick over at the Memorial. And then same with Drew and Paul and his team. And then same with my team with AC Entertainment and C3. Like, everybody just works together. And I think what you saw yesterday was a manifestation of all of those things coming together to pull off something really special that Drew spearheaded, that can't be done if you're if you don't have all of those teams and pieces coming together and really wanting to do something special, you can't make it happen. So it's really just an honor to be a part of it all. And I thought yesterday's show at Memorial was just so incredibly magical, and it just highlights, the things that Drew's been working on for his career, and that we've been, lucky enough to partner with him here since 2018 in Chattanooga.
Drew, I want to hear your answer, but before you do, and I want to brag on you first too. But to your point, Ted, I mean, you do this all over, and it's totally fishing for a compliment for Chattanooga, but it doesn't happen everywhere like this, does it? You don't get that kind of cooperation among so many different partners, or at least not that I've seen. Is that overstating?
No, I don't think it's overstating at all. I mean, if Drew doesn't lead the charge on putting this together because he cares so passionately about his fans and the Moon River fans and their experience, if our team isn't there to really support Drew's vision and our vision for what we want this to be and become in Chattanooga, if the city and Mayor Kelly isn't 100% all in and supporting what we're trying to accomplish, if Nick Wilkinson at Memorial doesn't want to work that night or doesn't want to put the effort into bringing his team in, it doesn't happen like it did yesterday. And then there are all of the, incredible people that are in each of those teams who had to work really, really hard and extra hard to pull off something that took a lot of effort. So it's really a hats off to everybody for making it happen.
Yeah. And Drew, I want to hear yours, but and again, we're going to talk to Nick. But one of the things he said was if Drew and Ellie aren't there to host and shepherd, basically, it would have just been a cluster, the actual show. But he had nothing but praise to say about how you were able to, MC everything. And that's another one of those things that kind of doesn't get if it works well, nobody notices, right? I guess is the point. So, but anyway, Drew, talk about that. If I mean, there's a lot of things that had to come together. Like normally these, in my experience, a lot of these bands, they come in on their bus, they get there however, hour before, and they leave. But these guys were around and willing to wanting, not just willing, but they wanted to perform, right? So I mean, how does all that happen?
Yeah. Well, I also want to just to acknowledge some of the artists that weren't able to play. Had some of these folks that once they found out their set had been canceled, they made their way back to Atlanta or Nashville. Like Kev Mo was already back in Nashville by the time, because his show was supposed to be at 3:30.
And that's normal, right? I mean,
totally normal. And so
that's my point. That's normal.
I know for sure that if other folks had still been in town, we probably would have had them. They would have, gotten up there as well. But I think, it also, there's some practicalities as well. Like the kind of music that plays at Moon River is, it's sort of a song based lineup. These are all like, it's not a huge, like, while a lot of these acts may have production, this is not a big production heavy lineup. There is a lot of production involved, but it's mostly because there's a lot of people with a lot of instruments. And so, Charlie getting up there and singing a couple songs on acoustic guitar is manageable in this sort of throw and go format. And he and Leon being willing to do that, or Abraham, JP, me and Ellie. I mean, all of us were playing basically solo acoustic sets, but really like local natives and Sammy Ray being willing to jump up there with like horns and drums and 5 vocals and have no time to sound check. I mean, it's absolutely unheard of. I mean, this is like the kind of stuff you do when you're like a brand new band trying to like play an open mic night and it's a total cluster. All these bands have earned and deserve sort of a better situation than that. But at the same time, I think they also realized the sort of gravity of the gravity of the opportunity that all these people, which Ted and I have talked about many times before. People come to Moon River, come to Chattanooga from all over the country. And so we know that a lot of the people there, they've booked flights to get there and they've got hotel rooms that night and they're not doing anything. If the show's canceled, they have no plans. And so I was inspired in some part years ago. I can't remember when it was. Pilgrimage had a really tough year one year with rain and had to cancel everything. And I remember a friend of mine who we all know and love, who's played Moon River, Brandy Carlisle, she pivoted that night and put on I think she did 2 or 3 shows at a small venue and basically had an online sign up. If you have a wristband, you can sign up and try to pull something off. Just try to pick up the pieces, make some, the old, make lemonade out of lemons. And
Sure.
so I think that the spirit of Moon River Festival is, it was amazing. I was so prepared for when we announced. I was looking at social media this is going to be this comment section is going to be a dumpster fire. And while we certainly had detractors, I was amazed at how many people recognized the complexity that if anybody on this whole property wants this festival to happen more than me and Ted, they don't exist. We wanted this thing to go on more than anybody else in the team, and everybody's put so much work, security, vendors. I mean, there's production, there's bands, there's so many people have made plans to have this thing happen, and we can't control these external circumstances, and that's just the nature of outdoor events, So to see whether, like you said earlier, whether it's Memorial or whether it's the security staff that they put a bunch of them in a van and drove over to help run security at the venue. I mean, it was just wild to see it all happen. But I think it's the spirit of the festival. Hey, this is about music. This is about community. This is about this place. And a lot of people worked really hard to come here as fans. Let's see if there's anything we can do to salvage what was honestly my 2 o'clock to 6 o'clock was about as depressed and sad as I've been in a long time. And it's it would have been easier had it been a 4-hour lightning storm, but it was these pockets of chaos.
Oh yeah, the tease.
Tease. Yeah. So you're just man, you think we're gonna get to have it and we don't, and then it pours, and it's just all this difficult situation, and people were upset, and we get that, and we're trying to do our best. And the fact that Ted and his team were willing to do the refunds was just a home run from a sort of like Ted said, taking care of our people, and the Moon River crowd. While there's always you're always going to get first timers and newcomers who are just there because they like particular acts on the bill. The general spirit of Moon River is definitely a unique vibe, and it's a unique community that comes together and loves this place, loves this kind of music, loves the people, and I think that's Ellie and I love music. We love we love. The audience is a part of the band in some ways. It's like an extension of the experience. That's why people go to live shows. So I think that spirit hopefully sort of flows in every direction with everybody involved. But I don't think neither Ted nor I want to sugarcoat it. Yesterday was a really, really, really hard day.
Yeah.
But it ended really beautifully. And that's cheers to 100+ people who helped make that happen.
We got not long, about 8 more minutes left before the Zoom recording ends. We can either jump back on or we can kind of wrap it up, but I don't want to keep you guys too much longer. But I wanted to.
Wife's 40th. It's my wife's 40th birthday, so I've got to
nice.
go in a minute. But
mine, my 59th is Wednesday, so tell her happy birthday.
Yeah, you too.
Happy birthday!
Thank you. But talk about that audience, man. I mean, when Nick called me, he's like, Barry, we might have 50 people. We might have 100. I don't care. We're going to do it. It's going to be great. You had almost 3,000 people. I know one of my favorite shows ever was second year of Riverbend, Jason and the Scorchers. It rained, and Jason Ringenberger sat on the end of the stage with an acoustic guitar in the rain. I'll never forget it. It's one of those impromptu kind of moments where the artist connects because it was something unexpected. Everybody appreciated it. I mean, you know, it's another one of those where there were probably 50,000 people who claimed they were there and there were 50 of us. You know, it's those kinds of things. you know those shows, right?
For sure.
But this is going to be one of those events that people will always remember, right?
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't create this, like, Ted and I could not go out right now and book this show and make it happen. You know, just like
I like that.
Yeah,
so
no,
it's just
no doubt.
I mean, that would be impossible. So I've gotten so many texts from friends who stuck around and waited to see if we were going to. I think a lot of my friends know me well enough to know that we're not going to go down without some sort of fight. You know, at the time I thought my playing in the parking lot was the only fight I was going to be able to sort of add to the mix. But then once everybody sort of jumped on board this lunatic idea, it turned out to be something obviously much bigger and better. But yeah, I'll just read a text while we're sitting right here. This is great. A friend of mine who came in from Minneapolis, he said, that was a once in a lifetime organic event that I'm so glad I was present for. Every fan echoed that sentiment. You taught thousands of people how people don't give up hope, go on and on. Just like, you know, people, it was magic.
That's awesome.
And I mean, my favorite part of the night was Leon was not on the announcement because again we had not heard if he was gonna be able to make it or not. And, I had told everybody kind of middle of the show once I found out. I didn't want to leak it, but I just said, hey, I just recommend to the audience here that you guys should probably stick around to the bitter end. And you know, Leon's a really tall guy, and I'm not. So I go out to the microphone to MC right after Charlie's done, and I just raise the microphone up to about my forehead. And I said, I got up on my tiptoes to get up to it, and I said, got to raise the mic up because our next guest is pretty tall. Y'all welcome Leon Bridges. And I mean, that place lost its mind.
Nice. That's awesome, man.
And it was just one of those moments, like, yeah, I don't know. It was a lifetime moment for me as well, and hopefully for the people in the room.
Yeah,
but I don't want to relive it, to be honest. Like I don't want to have to do that again. Too stressful.
No, we're not doing it again, please. Just to add to what Drew was saying about Leon, like this for me kind of like encapsulated the evening and what Drew and the team all accomplished is Leon Bridges walks out and plugs in his own guitar. And like, when was the last time that went down? And it's not just Leon, but I think he's a good example. Like, there were no texts, there were no anything. Like Drew was saying, like, this was basically an open mic night for, you know, superstars and national touring artists that have been doing this for a very long time. And, you know, when was the last time any of these artists didn't have their people helping them and sound checking? And these artists are risking a lot with social media these days to go out and perform under these conditions because it's really tough, like bad monitor, bad sound, whatever it is. And yet Drew was able to put together an incredible lineup of artists who were willing to risk it.
That's a great point.
It was magical. And I think it's really hard to even put into words like all of those pieces that had to come together and the risks that these artists had to take in a time and place like in today's society where honestly lots of people don't risk it.
Ted, I feel like I need to ask this, and I probably should have asked it at the front, and we might move it around, but because I know people are going to want to know, what are the sort of things that go into making that decision, that go, no go type of decision? And I don't know if you can answer that in a minute or two, but it's not easy.
I'll answer
right?
it quickly. It's not. I mean, it's like going back to what Drew was saying. Like there's a group of us who work on this festival for a year. Like today, we're already starting to talk about artists for next year. What are we going to do that's going to make it better next year? So it's just really, it's devastating when you're faced with making a call to not move forward with something, you know, for the safety of the fans and the staff and the artists. it's just really hard. It's, you know, for me, it was a little emotional, but at the end of the day, like I thought, I know our team made a really hard call. It was painful, but it was primarily based on the conditions of the site. It was flooded in a lot of areas and a lot of key areas that we needed to access for both, you know, for patrons and for ADA, et cetera. And the fact that we were getting a weather forecast that were predicting additional storms that would have rain and lightning.
Yeah.
And the site was not able to load those fans back in. And not to be dramatic, but I watch a lot of those music festival documentaries, and had just watched both Firefest, which is I think a real lesson in what not to do in life, and then also like the Woodstock '99 one.
Yeah.
And I just think sometimes the best decision is the hardest one at the time, when you're going to have to tell people who have, you know, planned on this for months and months, and just so much joy coming to Chattanooga to experience this with Drew and all the artists. Tell them you can't do it. It's tough.
Yeah.
But when you know you're making the right decision for the safety of everybody involved, you know, you just think about, well, what would happen if you put 5,000 people onto this site, and then at night you can't see where you're walking, and you've got, you know, inches and inches of standing water and hazards and safety situations and electricity that you don't know whether it's going to be in water or not. I mean,
Yeah.
that's,
All right.
you know, I mean, I don't want to go too much more into
No,
it,
no,
but
no.
it's just,
I think we're
at the
about.
end of the day, it's just, yeah, it's just a tough call. And then it makes it even tougher when the next storm doesn't hit as planned, and it's, you know, you still
Right.
can't do it because of the site, but then you kind of